It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails at randywangradio@gmail.com. You can get the podcast of the show by searching for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. And most importantly, you've got to check out my new Substack, randywangradio.substack.com, so you can get the California Report in your inbox for free every single day. And with that, let's get into it with the California Report. Starting in Southern California, can you believe it? After nearly a year of making this promise, the city council is finally moving on something they should have done a very long time ago. And that is when Karen Bass promised she would waive the permit fees for Palisades fire victims. She said that in her May State of the City address. It's been through city council hell for 9 months. And it still hasn't passed, but it looks like they're going to vote on it soon. Why this nonsense takes so long, I do not understand. And one thing that was really irritating as I was listening to whenever this would get debated at City Hall was that the city council was complaining about, not Tracy Park, but the members of the city council were complaining about how much revenue they were going to lose by waiving those permit fees. If the Palisades didn't burn down, people wouldn't be filing those permits to begin with. So it was bizarre. Now, I'm sure you're aware, I mostly promote our local TV stations up and down the state of California. That's where I get the majority of my news, but I'm going to give credit where credit's due. Huge shout out to the LA Times today for their explosive piece showing that it was Karen Bass who personally changed the after action report. The Palisades LAFD action report, what went wrong, why everything went wrong. You remember when it originally came out and interim chief Ronnie Villanueva said, there was just nothing we could have done. It was bad wind. Yeah, it turns out that was all a bunch of BS. We found out that it got watered down, and now we found out who ordered the watering down. It was Karen Bass, because apparently she thought, oh, if we tell the truth, the city might be liable. Yeah, you think? So if you have a way to get through the paywall or you're a subscriber to LA Times, that story is pretty explosive. Now, another story that you're going to see a lot of headlines about over the next few days is the study on a mileage tax going on in the California legislature. They say that this isn't a tax yet. They're just looking at the possibility of a tax and something to replace the gas tax because too many people got EVs and hybrids. But does that mean that they won't have both at the same time or find some way to nickel and dime you or increase registration fees? There's a lot of possibilities, but CBS LA had a great piece exploring everyone's reactions to the proposed mileage tax. And I'm guessing what they're studying is how exactly it is they're going to implement that, because it sure seems like they're going to need some kind of transponder in every single car, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that don't care for that. Another great piece from CBS LA is the effort going on in the legislature to toughen DUI offenses, because in a day and age of Lyft and Uber and Waymo, drinking and driving is completely unacceptable. Assemblywoman Cotty Petrie Norris from Irvine wants to do something pretty common sense. On your first DUI offense, because there should be no excuse, you get the ignition interlock device. That's right. You get the car breathalyzer. Here's the problem. Cotty Petrie Norris has put this thing forth in the legislature, and it died twice already. I don't think there's enough support for this, even though they definitely should be cracking down on the unacceptable crime of drinking and driving, which apparently those kinds of crimes are going up in the state of California, which I don't know what that says about it, but it's one of the reasons why I don't like to drive. Now, on to the mayor's race. Yesterday, Spencer Pratt filed his paperwork. He is officially running for LA mayor, and he caught up with NBC LA, so there's a piece with him on there. And there's still the rumored run of Lindsay Horvath, the LA County supervisor. So she puts out a new Twitter account that easily gets spotted, Lindsay for LA. And now she's going on all the shows saying she's doing what Matt Mahan did when he was running for governor. He said, I'm thinking about it. You know, she's dipping her toe in the water, seeing what people say. So she went on with Alex Michelson. I'm waiting for him to post that interview. She also went on with KTLA at the News at 7. And I'll tell you one thing that I'm not buying is Lindsay Horvath claiming that so many people are calling her and begging her to run. Who's doing that?
Quite frankly.
Now, is it a crapshoot between who would be worse, more Karen Bass or Lindsay Horvath? I don't know. I think at this point, nothing would be worse than Karen Bass, but Lindsay Horvath's not much better. There were plenty of failures at the county level when it comes to the fires, especially in Altadena and the warning system. I know her district is the Palisades and the Valley, but there's a lot of problems here. She has made a lot of headlines with defunding LAHSA, starting up the county's homelessness department, but we haven't seen any results as to if anything's going to be better with any of that. So we don't really have much of a good track record with Lindsay Horvath. We know what her time on the West Hollywood City Council was like, where Lindsay Horvath was the one that wanted to make sure we defunded the sheriff's department and put in unarmed block-by-block ambassadors. So I don't know what's going to happen. I will say the race gets much more interesting if Horvath gets in, because that splits the Karen Bass vote, which means that it could be one of the two of them and Spencer Pratt in the runoff. I don't think Austin Butner has a chance in hell. That campaign is wasted. And how interesting would it be? It's a rare possibility, but how interesting would it be if there was enough support for other candidates, because Karen Bass is historically unpopular, that she doesn't even make the runoff? It's not likely, but it would be beautiful. Now, on to the Bay Area. This is probably not surprising for anybody, but San Jose, where Matt Mahan is the mayor of, who's now running for governor, has been named the world's least affordable city for first-time home buyers. And there's a lot of reasons for that. That is Silicon Valley. And apparently what's going on is the reason San Jose is getting so expensive is because all the much nicer communities up the peninsula have gotten so expensive that the people that are priced out of those smaller communities, they're going to San Jose. And the people that are priced out of San Jose are going to Gilroy. And of course, because this is the Bay Area and there are actual modes of transportation, it is doable. It's not great. They could have used all the high-speed rail money to really make sure that it was easy to get around everywhere down up there and down here, but more on that in a minute. Now, on to Sacramento. I always got a shout out anytime Julie Watts has a piece, because Julie Watts is an incredible investigative reporter. And Julie Watts is looking into the FAIR Plan, you know, the insurer of last resort that you might think it is a state insurance plan. It is not. It was passed back in the 60s, this legislation that created this consortium of insurance companies because nobody wanted to insure Watts after the riots in the 60s. And what it has turned into is the insurance industry's way to dump people onto worse policies that it used to be. The risk of putting people on the FAIR Plan was if the FAIR Plan went belly up, the insurers were held responsible. Well, thanks to Ricardo Lara, now what do we find out? The ratepayers are responsible if the FAIR Plan goes belly up. It has not depleted the FAIR Plan. It has only gone up. But one of the issues with the FAIR Plan, thanks to Julie Watts, is the fact that unlike the insurance companies, they're not transparent about their meetings. We don't know who's on their board. We don't know what they're talking about. And there is new legislation to change that. Another piece of legislation being put forth, although this is nationally, is by California Congressman John Garamendi, who wants to renew safety pushes for rail. Why? Because train derailments are a thing. In fact, one happened in Stockton the other day. Luckily, it wasn't a train with a bunch of chemicals like happened in East Palestine, Ohio. But These things do happen. As much as we want to push rail and high-speed rail, train derailments happen. I don't know what's been going on, but Spain had like 4 major derailments, some of them that lost lives, all within the span of a week. And it was like right after they announced that like transit would be nearly free for everybody. It's really weird what's going on there. Of course, one of the big stories yesterday was that Gavin Newsom held a press conference in Kern County at the Wasco railhead of the high-speed rail as he was taking a victory lap and celebrating that they finished the railhead and they may very well be laying down track someday. When that day is, who knows? But there's still a lot of irritation out there. And as much as Gavin Newsom says, if you hate the high-speed rail, you hate the Central Valley, there are actually some cities in the Central Valley that are like, we don't want this thing either. And thanks to Ashley Zavala at KCRA3, we also know that through the governor's office and the high-speed rail, speaking of transparency, there's a lot of things that they don't want the public to know, and they're trying to keep a bunch of information about this project secret. Why? Who knows? By the way, you know, one of the things that Gavin was touting is that now that this thing has state funding for the next 20 years, thanks to Gavin Newsom extending cap and trade, which he now calls cap and invest, which means your gas prices will be higher for the next 20 years to pay $1 billion a year for the high-speed rail. And that's not to get it from San Francisco to Los Angeles. That's not funded. We're just talking about getting the initial 120 miles from Wasco to Madera. And then I don't even think they have planned out or funded the rest of the original segment, which takes it to Merced. Again, I don't understand the concept of how this takes cars off the road or is economic improvement if you're moving people from one part of the Central Valley to the other part of the Central Valley. Wasn't the whole point to connect the metropolitan areas to the Central Valley? So I guess people could live in Fresno and commute for 3 hours a day on a train like you're in Pennsylvania and you go to New York or DC. Yeah, I don't know about that. We told you a little bit about this yesterday as you have school strikes that are being planned in San Francisco, possibly in Los Angeles. Well, in Sacramento City Unified, they're just straight up broke. Maybe they gave too many sweetheart deals. They were giving away too many things, but they're facing such a large budget deficit that if they don't make cuts and close it, they're going to get taken over by a state receivership. Now, a story that I've been following in Placer County is from CBS News Sacramento, and it is this small little town called Alta. And Alta is dealing with the fact that a judge wants to release a SVP into their community. What is an SVP? A sexually violent predator. Somebody who is a repeat offender who every time they let him out commits another horrible crime. But I guess at some point we have to stop keeping these people in a hospital and we need to put them back out into the community. And if the community doesn't raise every hell about it, they'll get placed there. Well, thanks to all the yelling and kicking and screaming from the residents of Alta, they are now forcing a reevaluation of this placement in Placer County. But that's got to be a nightmare, especially you live in a small town and you have somebody who cannot be rehabilitated through nonsensical state laws. We're just saying, sure, let them out. Let's see what happens. Well, that's the first part of the California report, but we got a lot more to cover, including what's going on in San Diego, what's going on in the Central Valley, what's going on with Gavin Newsom, and of course, the governor's race. So we'll finish off the California report in moments. If you want to subscribe, I make this every single day before the noon show. And if you subscribe for free on Substack, it goes right into your inbox. So you get this in your email every day, and it has the links to every single one of these stories on YouTube. So in your own time, you can watch all of them in depth, especially the ones that we don't have time to cover here on this 1-hour radio show. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's get back to today's California report. You can follow along and see all the stories at randywangradio.substack.com. The San Diego stations have just great content. A lot of it is relevant statewide, including this class action lawsuit from job seekers who are going after an AI hiring platform. What does the AI hiring platform do? Well, apparently, it doesn't just judge your resume. It looks into your background, like your social media and anything else that's any evidence of you anywhere being on the internet, and prejudges if you're even going to make it to a human to see your resume. And there are a lot of consumer protection laws that violates, especially what happens if it's making mistakes. But I feel for anybody that's out there in the job market, because it sure seems on both ends, it's harder than ever to look for a job, and it is harder than ever for companies to hire people. It is a weird time. San Diego has been talked about a lot when it comes to their budget deficits. And what do you know? Jacking up all the parking fees did not solve it. Nickel and diming their residents did not solve it. San Diego now faces a new $17 million budget deficit. And what's so funny is they actually reduced their projected revenue for all the hikes in parking, because I guess they didn't account for the massive reduction in demand when you told the citizens that they have to pay for parking at Balboa Park, and you doubled the parking rates at the gas lamp. It has turned people off. Now, another story that I found very interesting is, have you heard about this Costco lawsuit? CBS 8 has a piece about this, where apparently there was a big lawsuit brought against Costco because their very popular $5 rotisserie chicken has a label that it's preservative-free, and they use some kind of preservative. Could just be salt, the world's oldest preservative. But apparently, people are really starting to pay attention to what is on your label, what does it mean, and is it actually healthy for you? And the more people are paying attention to what's in their food label, what are the ingredients, can you pronounce them, that ultimately is better. We should all be conscious of the food that we're putting in our bodies. And I know that's rich coming from me, somebody who originally got famous on the radio for eating a bunch of fast food, but I've changed my ways. And in the Central Valley, I try to pick up stories from there when I can. 23 ABC has a piece while Gavin Newsom is celebrating how great the high-speed rail is for the Central Valley. Part of the high-speed rail is going to go through the town of Shafter. When I say go through the town of Shafter, I mean go right down the middle of Shafter. And the locals in Shafter don't care for that. They're like, why can't it go around the city and take 5 extra minutes? But apparently, we need to tear up a whole bunch more existing land and put more small businesses out of business for this train that maybe will be done in 10 years. Maybe 20 years? We'll see. Only one story in the California Crime Blotter today as a resident scared off a burglar in West Hollywood, but this resident lived on the second floor, and apparently the burglars are using ladders to climb into balconies. I also have posted Gavin Newsom's whereabouts yesterday, including him posting a selfie YouTube video outside of the high-speed railhead, and I put his entire press conference, if you want to listen to his celebration with the California High-Speed Rail Authority on this project that he says is a game changer. And you don't even need to think about the fact that it's rail. It's all about jobs. And don't you worry, there's going to be so much foreign investment in it. On to the governor's race, Antonio Villaraigosa went on with Alex Michelson yesterday to make some very interesting allegations, and good luck to him. And I have posted the governor's debate from last night. I listened to about half of it. It is pretty interesting. You've got Steve Hilton on the Republican side. On the Democrat side, you've got Becerra, Tom Steyer, Tony Thurmond, Antonio Villaraigosa, Betty Yee, and late entry Matt Mahan. So give that a listen. If you're still trying to figure out who you are interested in for governor, you might learn a thing or two about these candidates. That's going to do it for today's California Report. If you want to check this out every day, I post it right before noon. It's pretty much the shareable version of my cut sheet for the station. Get it at randywangradio.substack.com. That's randywangradio.substack.com. When we come back, we'll dive deeper into what's going on with California's high-speed rail. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randywangradio@gmail.com. Search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to the California Report for my daily list of all the stories that matter to you locally. randywangradio.substack.com. It's free. Gavin Newsom was in the Central Valley yesterday to celebrate a major milestone for high-speed rail.
So I'm here in the Central Valley in Wasco, right near Shafter. And
hey, he pronounced it correctly. Wasco. Also, you know how everyone says it's Bakersfield? No, it's not. Wasco is not Bakersfield.
So I'm here in the Central Valley in Wasco, right near Shafter, and we just made an announcement of our progress here on the high-speed rail system. We're now in the process of starting to lay track, 119.
Starting to lay track, which also is what he said last year. When do we start actually laying track?
119-mile first phase, fully funded because of the investments we'll make through the Cap and Invest program through 2045. 1,700 people every single day, union jobs, go to work on this project.
1,700 people, and we're paying how many billions of dollars? I don't know if that adds up. Again, if this project had like a reasonable end date or a plan for who is going to ride this train if it just goes from one part of the Central Valley to the other? I don't understand it.
Every single day, union jobs go to work on this project. 58 large-scale structures have been complete, 29 others underway, 99% of the environmental work done. All of the hard work behind us, now we're going to see the fruits of that.
By the way, if it took that long, 15 years to do all the environmental work, that is an indictment of the state of California. And it's not just, independents and Republicans saying this. Ezra Klein, the New York Times columnist, a big part of his book Abundance is the failures of high-speed rail and how even when California tries to go green, they get in their own way.
We're going to start seeing precisely what you see here. Real tracks, real progress.
Sure. Well, let's see what the progress is. Here's a report from ABC 10 in Sacramento.
Governor Gavin Newsom announced a major step forward today in California's high-speed rail project.
He says the prep work's done. We're one step closer to laying tracks for the first 119 miles of the railway.
Now, the reason they keep saying 119 is because they already shortened expectations from the shortened expectations. The first section of this isn't even, as they used to say, Bakersfield to Merced. Now it's Wasco to Madera.
ABC 10 State Matters political reporter Jenny Huh is here now with the latest update.
The last progress announcement on high-speed rail was in January of 2025, in which they began construction of the railhead, which allows for the transportation of supplies. 9 months later, in October 2025, that railhead was completed, and today there was official celebration of that completion.
This is the phase. It's the proof point. Can't believe what you can't see. Well, you're about to see a lot.
We still don't see a train. They actually haven't even done the contracting for who is going to provide the track.
We'll be launching track laying that starts from here.
Governor Newsom and
That's Ian Chowdhury, the new head of high-speed rail. He's European, so he must know about trains.
Governor Newsom and high-speed rail authorities met in Kern County Tuesday afternoon to celebrate the next phase in California's high-speed rail project.
Do you know originally they brought on Japanese consultants for this thing, and the Japanese consultants threw their hands up and said, "We can't deal with your nonsense, California."
They say
the Japanese who created their own high-speed rail in 1965.
They say track for the first 119 miles of the rail from Bakersfield to Madera will be laid around September.
Not Bakersfield, but close.
We have the infrastructure ready to go. We're in the process of hiring the contractor who's actually going to lay the track. We've ordered all the materials, so they'll start now arriving at the site.
Shouldn't some of these steps...
By the way, in case you don't know, the distance from Wasco to Bakersfield is about 32 miles. So it doesn't go to Bakersfield, it goes to Wasco. and there's nothing in Wasco but a prison. Okay.
Shouldn't some of these steps have been done years in advance because we anticipated this was going to be built anyways?
There's no question that there have been some delays in the project, but in terms of where we're at today, acquiring 119 miles of right-of-way. I mean, this is land.
Well, there's another thing. Because of the nonsense of this project where it needed to go through the Central Valley. Again, this was sold as we need to connect LA to San Francisco. That's what people voted on in 2008. And you could have done a pretty simple line up and down the 5 freeway where there's a whole lot of nothing. But in order to get those federal dollars, you have to meet federal demands. And it was the Obama people that said, hey, if you want some of these federal dollars, I want this thing going through Fresno because there's a lot of asthma in Fresno, and we want to make sure that people have a cleaner alternative to cars. And here we are almost 20 years later. There's no train. And we decided to build it middle out. All you Silicon Valley fans get that one. Instead of, I don't know, starting where it would have made the most sense, which was electrifying San Francisco to San Jose, going then out to Gilroy, then going out to the Central Valley. But starting in the center where there's nothing, it never made any sense. That's why we are still laughing at this thing, although it is costing us more and more money. Gas prices will be artificially high for the next 20 years in California to pay for this. And that is not for the entire thing. There is no funding source or any plan to actually get this thing from Los Angeles to San Francisco. And I would argue by the time they actually got that built, the teleporter technology from the Star Treks and the Star Warses will be here. And we won't have to worry about any of this.
Acquiring 100.
I guess Star Wars never had teleporters. It was just Star Trek. It's going to happen.
Acquiring 119 miles of right-of-way. I mean, this is land that somebody owned at some point. Once you have the land, then it's clearing it.
High-speed rail.
Again, we could have built this thing where there was no worries of having to acquire parcels, but we didn't do that.
High-speed rail board member.
You could argue the people in charge want to make sure that they, at the High-Speed Rail Authority, have job security for a very long time. So let's do this in the most expensive and slowest way possible.
High-speed rail board member Henry Perea says materials are arriving and being transported at the site thanks to the completion of the railhead. Construction of that first 119 miles of track, the first operational high-speed rail line in the state, is set to be completed by 2032.
As we are doing.
I doubt it. We'll be here to tell you if it's completed or not.
As we are doing.
We'll get on that inaugural ride, from Wasco to Madera.
We're preparing the remainder of the 171.
And I'm not knocking the Central Valley here. I'm just saying if you connect the Central Valley to the Bay or to Southern California, then I kind of understand what we were going for here. But what are we connecting to? Who is supposed to ride this?
We're preparing.
And how much? We don't even know how much it's going to cost. If you plan a trip to Europe, yeah, there are high-speed rail lines that can take you from Amsterdam to London and from Spain to France. And they do exist. And someday I do want to ride one of those, but they're not necessarily cheaper. A Ryanair is way cheaper.
We're preparing the remainder of the 171 miles.
That full 171 miles between Bakersfield and Merced is set to be completed by 2045.
So in 20 years, they'll have Bakersfield to Merced. 20 years. LA to San Francisco, not in any of our lifetimes. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go to Mark in Altadena. Mark, hello.
Yeah, hey, Randy. Yeah, you recall some years back that a commuter train in L.A., a commuter train and a freight train collided head-on and killed a whole bunch of people, injured a whole bunch of other people. A friend of mine who was a frequent user of the train wasn't on the train that day, but he used it so often that the frequent users of the train knew how the train was, gave nicknames to the drivers of the train, depending on how the train was performing. Like herky-jerky starts, really fast starts, slow starts, and all that. The guy that was driving the train that day, they nicknamed him Horn Crazy. Horn Crazy had really rough accelerations and braking, and he would go bonkers on his horn, beep, 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 all the time. And that was Horn Crazy. Horn Crazy had something in his lap that he was looking at when he realized, he crashed the train and head onto a freight train. There's no freaking way that I'm going to be on a 150-mile train. I'm pretending that this thing actually gets built with somebody who's driving that train called Horn Crazy, some government official, some DIE or DEI hire guy that doesn't know how to drive a train like Horn Crazy and gets a lot of people killed.
There's definitely that concern. I definitely know what you're talking about. And it's not like these things are entirely safe. We hear about derailments all the time with regular speed trains, let alone high-speed rail. And the federal rail authorities constantly don't want to do anything about safety improvements. So, yes, is this truly something we want to do? Well, apparently it is. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's real quick go to Dale in Long Beach. Dale, hello.
Hello, Randy. Hey, I want you to guess how much a ticket's going to cost in the future to ride the train for 120 miles, because I might not live long enough to ride it, but you might actually live long enough.
I'm going to guess it's going to be like $200.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. It's going to be more than $120 for 120 miles. Do you really want a gangbanger in Bakersfield to rob somebody in L.A. and be home in about 45 minutes?
Well, I don't think we'll ever actually see that day happen, but it's an interesting thing to think about. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. All right, it is Wednesday, and on Wednesdays, I want to make sure that I share all of my love of food and wine with a little Wine Wednesday, because I'm a big fan of California wine and wine pairings, and I had some really great ones this week. But before I even get into my pairings, I got to share with you something that my wife got turned on to. There's this Instagram account, Samantha Sommelier, which, you have to figure out how to spell that. But Samantha Sommelier, Sommelier. And she's great. She is the no snob sob. And she is finding different wine pairings with stuff you can get at Trader Joe's. So a couple of these videos my wife saved. We went to Trader Joe's over the weekend. We tried them. One of them is you get the Trader Joe's Irish garlic butter chips. And then you get the Trader Joe's buffalo chicken dip. And you pair that with a Pinot Noir, specifically an Oregon Pinot, the one that she did in the video they didn't have, but we tried it and it was great. Another one that she has, and this is great, it's the Trader Joe's elote chips, the ones that kind of look like Frito scoopers, the new Trader Joe's white queso, which I'm regretting ever knowing that exists because it's really good. And you pair that with this Portuguese Vinho Verde that they have. It's like a $5 Portuguese white wine. It's an incredible pairing. I was really impressed. So I'm now following Samantha Sommelier, and I'm super interested in these little pairings, especially when you want something that's simple, that is like, wow, this really does everything a pairing is supposed to do, make every part of the dish better. So over the weekend, we had some tuna to use up. I'm still getting tuna every week for my friends at Nordic Catch, and it was too hot to do a pasta. I didn't feel like going as simple as just seared tuna with green beans, so we figured, why not do a classic, the tuna niçoise? And we did a great tuna niçoise. Currently, we're doing it over greens, even though it's so good over rice. I haven't gone back to rice since this diet. I could have it, but I think it's fine over greens. My wife makes this really great tangy dressing that's got Dijon and sherry and feta brine. And we paired it with a 2017 Foxen John Sebastiano Pinot. Now, I know what you're thinking. 2017, that's a little old. Here's the thing. We have a friend staying with us, so we had enough people that we could open more than just one bottle of wine, or we could open a Magnum. We had this Magnum sitting in our wine fridge forever and haven't had an excuse to use it. We're like, yeah, we could get through the three of us one Magnum. It was divine. It was delicious. Pinot and Niçoise, that is a match made in heaven. So that's one of the pairings that I was really, really excited about. I also told you that I made pulled pork over the weekend. I still have a little bit left over that I'm going to have tomorrow night, but we had leftovers last night, and pulled pork is so good. First time I've ever did it in a foil boat, and it came out great. What do you pair with pulled pork? With barbecue sauce, which, by the way, we have Rudy's barbecue sauce from Texas, but also Salt Lick is great, and you can get that one at Whole Foods or Lazy Acres. Pulled pork goes great with a Syrah. The first night we opened another Foxen. My wife's a member at Foxen, and they have great everything, but their 2020 Tinnaquack Syrah was perfect with it. But you could even go simpler. Last night we had the pulled pork again, and we opened a 2019 Jaffer's Syrah. Jaffer's out of Santa Barbara County, and it's like a $30 bottle. And I think you can even get that one at Gelson's. It was great. It was divine. We did a salmon night. I do a salmon night once a week. Usually we do balsamic salmon with a fiddlehead, but I was out of my balsamic. I just ordered a whole bunch of my favorite balsamic vinegar from Nuvo, which is their Godfather 18-year aged balsamic. It's the best thing on fish. I'm obsessed with it. I have 6 bottles now, so I'll be good with it forever. But I have this Pacific Northwest rub that we got from the Solvang Spice Merchant. And we decided to do salmon with the PNW rub with a Almarosa El Habali, that is their estate vineyard Pinot Noir, a 2022, and it was really great. And then we also had a little bit of celebrating to do. There's some, personal successes going on with my family. And so we wanted to have some friends over, celebrate with some great wine. So we tested a Sea Smoke, which I'm sure you've heard of Sea Smoke. It's one of the nicest wines in Santa Rita Hills, up against the Fiddlehead Doyle, which is the barrel select of the barrel select of Kathy Joseph. And when you start with a Doyle, even a Sea Smoke does not match up to it. But they were both great, and we got to celebrate, and we get to really clear out some wines that we've been meaning to drink for a while. But I love my California wines. As you can see, I love my Santa Barbara County wines. If you ever have any questions about that region, email me, randywangradio@gmail.com. See you tomorrow, everyone.